I was 25 years old when I first came to understand what love is. When I was 26 years old, I read a book by Beverly Nichols in which he stated, 25 seems to me the latest age at which anybody should write an autobiography. I remember I went to an older person in his 60s and discussed this with him, and he laughed at me and said, "What could you possibly have to say?" But I think what I found so fascinating about that sentence, particularly here almost 9 years later, is that when you're 25, everything is the first. You experienced maybe your first love, your first heartaches, your first miseries, and everything is new and the experience feels so close. It's not a memory, you're living in it. And that to me was very poignant. It took a long time to understand what my story would be about, but after long consideration I now know that it is a story of love. In the Czech opera by Dvorak, Rusalka, she's sitting in her tree near the lake, looking up at the moon. And her father asks, "Why do you want to be a human?" And she answers, "If you're a human, you're mortal. And if you're mortal, you can love." When I was 25 years old, I had underwent a huge amount of suffering and misery due to my own mares of my mind. And I found myself in a self-imposed exile. And after having written my last letter, I understood the ignorance and the sadness that had completely overwhelmed me. And I had to seek a sense of absolution from those demons. In the following months, I came to think long and hard and asked for help. And a very nice woman, she said to me while having heard my story, "But Leonardo, do you know what love is?" And I sat back and had absolutely no inkling of what the meaning of love could be. And she said to me, "Love is not when you say it's going to be okay, but it is when you say to a person, it is not going to be okay, but I'll be there for you." And I understood in that moment that love was not just what I heard about in Rusalka, but love was the presence. And my job suddenly became that I could cry out to those who are lost. And I understood that love is a legacy that you leave behind for those who are lost. Rusalka speaks of mortality, but by doing so in this context, I have, or my work have, the ability to become immortal. guess when in suffering, we need something meaningful and profound to set against it. This came clear to me very early. At the age of 5, I went to a production that my mother was involved in of Cyrano de Bergerac. John Keats, he said, "Beauty is a thing of joy that lasts forever." I knew at that moment that I wanted to be Cyrano de Bergerac. Maybe I already felt like it was him. Sitting up on the moon, looking down on the blue planet, seeing the beauty from up there. When creating art removes our own individuality, and we as the creator experience blissful joy of such tremendous power. When I was 6 years old, I stayed for the first time in an orphanage. And by the time I was 7, I was moved to a foster care on a very small island in Denmark. I remembered from Cyrano de Bergerac that the escapist dream was my safe haven, my passage to some joy in a sense. I understood that with a bit of imagination, I could change the world, my world. One of the fondest moments growing up on that island was the sensation of playing, just after school, running around in the fields, using your imagination, going on a treasure hunt for something that was worthless, but had a greater worth than anything else you could possibly buy. A couple of years ago, I was in London and I had a walk in Hyde Park. I saw this tree. It was just standing there, patient, quiet, observing. And then I saw the tree next to it, standing there, not quite as tall, but just standing there, almost like two old friends, just echoing each other and swaying in the wind together. And they were patient, they were humble, and I thought about the stories that they had endured in their long life, before me, after me. And that's when I came to understand. A painting is like a tree. It's a place. It's a place of sanctuary. It's a place of solace. It's a place you can cry at. You can feel joy. And you know you are in a place of good. As a tree is part of nature, painting is part of human nature. All you ask of a painting, it asks you back. It doesn't lie to you. It doesn't try to be something it is not. It is not promising you anything. You have to be patient and listen. And maybe it gives you an answer. Or maybe it's just listening. It won't say everything is going to be okay, but it will reply, I am here for you.